Hello and welcome back to the Avoid the Tyrewall podcast. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a motorsports review, mostly F1, F2, F3, F1 Academy and Indycar. So starting off with the Canadian Grand Prix. Russell was on pole, then Verstappen and then Norris, and it was a very, very rainy weekend. But Ferrari actually seemed to be struggling, and Leclerc's engineers said they were seeing something strange. Um, then Sargent actually hit the barrier, but he was okay. And there was a lot of people who were missing the corners and using the runoff. And then Alpine had an incident with Checo, and then Ricardo this is on lap 13, got a 5-second penalty for a false start. The battle between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen was really, really good. Then lap 21, Lando actually moved to P2 and then to P1. Um, and then Alonso and Russell was also a pretty good battle. At lap 25, Logan Sargent crashed on lap 25, which caused a safety car, and that safety car ended 4 laps later on lap 29. Then the track must have been drying at this point because Leclerc was out on slicks. However, he was really, really struggling. And then Lando Norris slid off the track and lost 2 places. At lap 43, Leclerc retired, and lap 45, Lando Norris was leading due to Max Verstappen and George Russell pitting. Lap 48, Max Verstappen went to lead, and there was a good battle between Lando Norris and George Russell. Perez crashed and he broke his rear wing on lap 53, and also Albon and Sainz crashed. So Sainz spun and Albon was collected. So Perez, Sainz, and Albon all retired. So we had 5 retirements at lap 58. The second safety car ended on lap 58 as well. But then Perez was under investigation for driving under unsafe conditions. So Perez retired later in the race, actually. And then Piastri and Russell were a decent battle. And then Tsunoda had a slight issue on lap 66, and he had a slight crash. But then George Russell P3 on lap 68, and George Russell versus Lewis Hamilton is getting really interesting, not just at the Canadian Grand Prix, but a lot of the other races. And then Max Verstappen won, but he really had to work for the win. And I honestly thought Lando Norris should get him. Overall, Verstappen was first, Norris second, and Russell third. Then Hamilton, Piastri, Alonso, Stroll, Ricciardo, Gasly, and Ocon, which were Alpine's first points of the season, I believe. And there were 5 DNFs, which were Sainz, Albon, Perez, Leclerc, and Sargent. So, the Spanish Grand Prix. Lando Norris went into the weekend looking really, really strong. We also had F2, F3, and F1 Academy this weekend. But at the start of the F1 race, F2 and F3 had reported rain, so it was really interesting to see, would there be rain? But Sargent had a 3-place grid penalty, and Albon had a pit lane start. And then lap 1, George Russell came flying around the outside. It was insane. I was actually shocked. But Lando Norris was then under investigation for forcing another driver off track, which turned out to be no further investigation, so he got cleared of it. Kevin Magnussen got a penalty for a false start. Then Russell had a really slow stop, and there was a big battle in the pit lane. At lap 18, Norris actually started to lead because of Max Verstappen pitting, and Hamilton and Sainz was a very good battle. They were very, very close, and they did actually hit a little bit. They crashed into each other slightly. Then lap 32, we had Norris versus Hamilton versus Russell, which was insane. And then lap 35, we had Norris and Russell and switching positions for P2. Then we had Ricciardo versus Ocon and Alonso versus Zhou Guanyu, which were very, very good battles. Hulkenberg had a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit, and then lap 51, Yuki Tsunoda also got a penalty for speeding in the pit. And then lap 55, I think one of the Ferraris let the other ones through, which I was a bit confused about, so it must have been team orders. And Albon had an off, and he literally was so confused, and the team didn't really give him any information, so he did get a bit angry with the team. Moving on to IndyCar, the Detroit Grand Prix. Lap 1 was chaos. So Will Power spun and broke his rear wing, but there was a several car pileup and a caution. Pelot seemed to be struggling quite a lot. And lap 16, there was another caution for Castro Neves and Simpson having a crash. Then Rasmussen was out, and Scott McLaughlin crashed on lap 33, which meant another caution. Lap 36, there was rain, and so everyone was sliding about. Lap 39, it had stopped raining on pit lane, but lap 41, VK was in the wall and he had stalled due to a crash with Will Power, but he was still running. Lap 46, Colton Herta crashed into the wall and there was a caution. And he nearly hit one of the other drivers. Will Power had apparently another penalty on lap 52. And then on lap 53, Lundgaard and Romain Grosjean crashed. Then on lap 60, Porsche had an incident with Canapino, I believe. And lap 63, Stingray Rob went into the tyres and he was slightly hit by Scotty Mack, I believe. Lap 70, Joseph Newgarden spun and Pelot hit him, which led to another caution. And then overall, we had 8 cautions, which was insane. But Scott Dixon won, Marcus Ericsson P2, and Marcus Armstrong P3. And that was actually Marcus Armstrong's first podium in IndyCar, which was really good, and I was really happy to see. And we only had one DNF, which was Rasmussen. Road America. P1 was Linus Lundqvist, who is actually a rookie, which was absolutely insane. And then Jamie Chadwick won in Indy Next, which I was so happy for her. Canapino was out due to the incident with his fans, let's say, and Nolan Siegel replaced him. Lap 1, this was just actually after the Canadian Grand Prix, so I did miss a little bit, but I watched replays, so I know what happened. But there was a massive crash, and there was a full course yellow, and then Kirkwood actually got the lead. Then lap 4, we went green, and Scotty Mack took the lead. And there was a caution because a diffuser part came off Herta's car and Herta spun again. Then lap 5, we got the news that Marcus Armstrong and Luca Giotto got penalties for avoidable contact. And lap 6, there was a green flag. And then Simpson crashed, a big hit into the concrete barrier, and he was hit by Rasmussen. Then lap 9, Rob got an avoidable contact penalty. Then lap 17, there was tons and tons of pit stops. And lap 18, the Polo took over the lead. Then on lap 22, there was slight contact between Dixon and Grosjean. And Dixon was going very, very slowly because his left rear had blistered, so he was really struggling. Then a very, very good battle between Power, McLaughlin, and Newgarden. And on lap 32, Newgarden nearly had a massive crash. Because he had a big snap, and in qualifying he actually had a really big crash. But then on lap 42, Marcus Armstrong had a DNF, which was really upsetting. And on lap 45, Joseph Newgarden seemed to be having lots and lots of oversteer, which he was just really struggling. But then Will Power took the lead and he won, and so it was a Penske 1-2-3, which was really good. And I think this was like the first win in a couple of years for Will Power, so I was really happy. But overall, Will Power came first, with Newgarden second and Scotty Mack or Scott McLaughlin third. And we had 2 DNFs, which were Armstrong and Simpson. Then the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey at Laguna Seca. So pole position was Alex Palou, and this was David Malukas' first race back after his injury, except he wasn't with McLaren, he was with Meyershank Racing. And Nolan Siegel is the new driver for the number 6 Aaron McLaren. Lap 1, Kirkwood took an absolutely incredible lead, and VK spun, which was not great. There was a lack of track limits, like one of the parts they just seemed to be going really out, like I'm not quite sure why or if there's any penalties or anything, but yeah, it was very interesting. Scotty Mack was doing absolutely incredible, and Pelot on lap 25 took the lead, but lap 26 and Lundgaard went off into the gravel. There was quite a lot of people going off into the gravel, and then lap 27, I think it was Felix Rosenqvist, but he also went into the gravel. They just seemed to be going off the side of the track. And on lap 28, Ericsson actually went into the gravel, and Lundgaard hit the 200 meters wall. board, which he was saying his car won't turn as a result of that because the board got stuck to his front wing. Then Newgarden got a penalty for exiting the pit exit wrong, which I didn't really understand, but it was like the pit's a funny shape, if that makes sense. Then lap 35, there was a massive crash for Luca Giotto, and there was a caution, so that meant tons and tons of activity in the pit lane. And then Dixon on lap 38 had a bit of contact in the pit lane. He sort of went in too deep, and then Scotty Mac was like just an innocent third party in that, so he got slightly hit. On lap 41, there was a really, really good battle between Romain Grosjean and Pato O'Ward, and then Nolan Siegel had a little bit of an off, which resulted in a caution. Lap 43, Canapino went off into the gravel, and Fittipaldi had a drive-through penalty. There were some good battles between Rossi and Palou, Palou and Herta, and then Palou took the lead from Herta, which was really good. But there was a bit of a hit between Armstrong and Newgarden, I believe. And then lap 75, there was a caution, and Scotty Mac and Will Power had a little bit of contact a few laps later. And then lap 79, Lundgaard goes very, very wide and has an off, and Rasmussen does the same. Then lap 83, Jack Harvey's car was smoking at the pit exit. And lap 86, there was a lot of good racing between Herta, Palou and Rossi, who were 1, 2 and 3. And then lap 86, there was another caution because Simpson and Ray Hall collided. And lap 94, Joseph Newgarden spun into the gravel, so he lost loads and loads of places. But P1 was Palou, P2 was Colton Herta, and P3 was Alexander Rossi. And then we had 5 DNFs who were Kiffin Simpson, Graham Rahal, Jack Harvey, Renus VK, and Luca Giotto. The F2, F3, and F1 Academy at Spain this weekend were pretty good. Paul Aron got pole in F2, Christian Mansell got pole in F3, and Abby Pulling took both of the poles in F1 Academy. The races were really good. Well, the one day the F2 race was really good and the F3 race wasn't amazing. But then the other day it was the complete opposite. In the F1 Academy race 1, Abby Pulling took a very, very dominant victory. Then in the F3 sprint race, Mary Boyer won. And F2 sprint race, Victor Martins won. The next day in the F2 sprint race, the F2 feature race, Jack Crawford won. And yesterday's winner, Victor Martins, had a massive crash with Dennis Hauger, and they both ended up stranded in the middle of the gravel. In F1 Academy Race 2, Chloe Chambers took a win, which she was really in control, and so that was really good to see. An F3 feature race, Lindblad took the win. And overall, it was a good weekend for motorsports. And I'm really looking forward to the next F1, F2, F3, F1 Academy and IndyCar races.